Welcome David Cobb back to the show on the Farm Bureau guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team at Mississippi Farm Bureau. David, of course, writes at CBS Sports, cbssports.com, and always a pleasure to visit. David, what's up, my man?
What's up, Richard? Not a whole lot. Just looking forward to another good weekend of college football.
No game bigger than the one that is happening in Columbus, Ohio, between number 7 Penn State and number 3 Ohio State. Biggest test of the year for both of these teams. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I'm expecting a pretty low-scoring game. I think both these defenses are really among the best in the country, and they haven't been challenged.
Hey, David, really I'm gonna cut you off just for a second, see if we can get a little bit better connection. You kind of sound like Mr. Roboto, so I'm going to let Borky hang up and call you back and see if we can try again. So we have Penn State, Ohio State this weekend. Penn State is the underdog on the road. Ohio State a 4.5-point favorite. The total in this game is 45.5. Both quarterbacks have been pretty good, but not like blow you away good. Drew Aller with 1,254 yards passing and 12 touchdowns, while Kyle McCord's got more yards. He's thrown for 1,651 yards and 11 touchdowns. So let's try this again, David. Sorry to cut you off mid-sentence.
Yeah, no worries. I think it's a battle of the defenses, really, because you go look statistically. These are two of the better defenses in the Big Ten. Granted, Ohio State is still not an elite unit, but when you think about Ohio State under Ryan Day, you think about the offense, you think about the quarterback play. Yeah, I mean, Kyle McCord's fine, but what makes Ohio State a legitimate national title contender is the fact that their defense is taking a big step forward now in year 2 under that coordinator, Jim Knowles. And so, I think they've got a shot to hold down a Penn State offense that has been relatively pedestrian so far. And that goes the other way, too, because Penn State is pretty nasty in the front 7 and then all the way to the back end of their defense. So I'm looking at a 20-17 type of game between Ohio State and Penn State.
So Drew Aller has thrown for 1,254 yards. He's got 12 touchdown passes. He's done a good job protecting the ball. We were looking and kind of talking about his spray chart yesterday. And what is it, 8 passes all season long out of 181 attempts that have traveled more than 20 yards in the air?
Wow, that's incredible. I've been looking at some of those charts myself, breaking down the Tennessee-Alabama game for a story tomorrow. And both Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton are throwing the ball deep at a much higher rate than that, and Joe Milton does it very unsuccessfully. So to see Penn State be so hesitant to take the deep shots, I think it tells you something, one, about the level of opponent that they've played. They don't feel like they've had to do anything too risky offensively, and then 2, the lack of a big-time playmaking wide receiver threat for Penn State. That's the biggest issue here, and one of the biggest differences between Penn State and Ohio State, because Ohio State not only has Marvin Harrison Jr., but they've got about 3 or 4 other really, really high-caliber receivers, any of whom might be the number 1 target at Penn State. So we've been waiting on Keandre Lambert-Smith to really hit at Penn State, but it hasn't quite popped for him yet. So that's a concern and a great find by you guys to really break it down and see just how infrequently they're taking those downfield shots.
David, you were in Knoxville last weekend. You mentioned Tennessee just a second ago. They've got the cigar game with Alabama this year. That was one of the great scenes in college football a year ago. Is there anything that you saw last week from Tennessee? I know they had the huge plays by D. Williams in special teams, kind of separated by about 4 plays from where he downs it at the 1 until he gets the punt return for a touchdown on the short field. Is there anything you saw, though, from Tennessee last week that gives you reason to believe that the Vols can roll into Bryant-Denny and pull an upset this weekend?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why I actually think Tennessee can certainly cover the spread and maybe even win outright. And one is the rushing attack was successful against Texas A&M. And that was a Texas A&M defense that the week before had really shut down Alabama's rushing attack. And then the other element of it is the fact that Tennessee really pressured Max Johnson quite a bit. And the difference between playing A&M and playing Alabama is that Jalen Milroe can get out of the pocket and burn you with his legs. But if they do a good enough job of containing him and spying him, I think Tennessee could really frustrate Alabama. in that way. And then when Tennessee has the football, I do think they'll be able to run the ball at least relatively well against Alabama.
Ole Miss goes to Auburn this weekend. Auburn leads the all-time series 35-11. Ole Miss last won on the Plains in 2015. Prior to that, you got to go back to 2003 to find a win for the Rebels at Auburn. It just doesn't happen very often. This is an Ole Miss team that is better than Auburn, and yet I think because of the history, especially in that stadium and in this series, Ole Miss fans – a little bit of trepidation going into this game. Is there reason for concern for Ole Miss, or if the Rebels show up and play well, is this one a foregone conclusion?
Well, you've seen Hugh Freeze mastermind good game plans at times this season. I mean, it's obvious, painfully obvious, that he doesn't have the caliber of quarterback that he needs to run his offense. However, when they played Georgia, they did a really good job of keeping Georgia off balance in the first 2.5 quarters of that game by running Peyton Thorne and just sort of cobbling together enough creative play calls in a row to move the football against Georgia. And so we know the Ole Miss defense has its flaws. So this is a game that Hugh Freeze, I'm sure, has been waiting for and plotting for.
You think?
And I bet he'll have some stuff up his sleeve. And so I get it. Night game at Jordan-Hare, you're 100% spot on. Ole Miss is the better team, should win the game. But this is the one that I look at on Saturday and be like, I just think it could get weird, right? Like, of all the games involving ranked teams on Saturday, maybe other than the ones we're really paying attention to, this is the one that sticks out to me for the potential chaos factor. And it's for the reasons you mentioned. On the flip side, Ole Miss is totally capable of going out and winning the game by 4 touchdowns. But Hugh Freeze at Jordan-Hare at night, it just, to me, has all those ingredients of something kind of wacky.
Mississippi State goes to Fayetteville this weekend, two teams that desperately need a win. For Arkansas, it's 5 straight losses, 4 of them in the SEC. It's the first time the Razorbacks have been at home in over a month. For Mississippi State, it's coming off an open date. We don't know the status of Will Rogers. Most people seem to think that it's going to be Mike Wright that goes at quarterback for the Bulldogs. Who's got the edge in this one when you look at these two teams?
Yeah, both teams on the struggle bus without a doubt. I lean Arkansas. To me, they have just been on the wrong end of a lot of really close games in a way that, to me, suggests fate will eventually intervene and get them back in the win column. And honestly, I think the ship has already sailed on bowl eligibility for Arkansas, even with a win against Mississippi State. The Dogs can still go bowling. I think if they win this one, there's enough gettable games left on their schedule. But even with that, I think Arkansas gets right here because what is Mississippi State good at? And I don't mean that disparagingly. It's just, to me, it's not clear what their strength is. I feel like Arkansas defensively is still a pretty good team, and that offense might finally get going this week because it's been held down for quite a while. And I mean, so long as KJ Jefferson is healthy, they're going to have a chance. And if it is the case that Will Rogers can't go, then I think that flips things even further in favor of the Razorbacks.
David, last thing for you today. What do you make of the story out of Ann Arbor, NCAA investigating Michigan for spying on other teams when they weren't supposed to be? How big of a deal of this? How big of a deal is this potentially for Michigan?
Yeah, it's. I think the only reason why it might be a big deal is because Jim Harbaugh is already in trouble with the NCAA, and maybe it's a strike 2 or strike 3 situation at some point with him because this type of stuff happens in college football all the time. Sign stealing, it's fairly common. I think you could ask coaches around the country, and they would say that it happens on an annual basis, either against them or they wouldn't admit it, but some of them even engage in it. So it's not all that uncommon. But it doesn't always come to light like this, and especially not in a situation where the coach in question is already the subject of NCAA scrutiny. So that's maybe the issue here for Jim Harbaugh is, I mean, we've all seen the NCAA doesn't have a whole lot of teeth left, but maybe in this case they tack on a game to a suspension or something there for him with the fact that he's been in hot water in the very recent past.
And that is a yet-to-be-determined suspension by the NCAA, even though Michigan self-imposed 3 games to start the year. David, always good to catch up. Thanks for jumping on the Farm Bureau phone line with us, and enjoy the weekend.